Hi, this is Deanna Kosaraju, founder and CEO of Global Tech Women. I hope that you're really enjoying Voices so far. We've had amazing sessions up to this point, and I'm really looking forward to hearing this one because it's something near and dear to my heart, Demystifying Women in Tech Groups. So I look forward to getting all kinds of pointers on how I can increase my power over at Global Tech Women to reach out to the world's women in tech. And so I'll turn it over to them. Welcome.
Thank you, Diana. This is Claudia Galvan. I have been involved with Women in Tech for a long time. Doing my real job, I actually help companies launch products globally. I have been leading international engineering teams for Oracle, Adobe, and Microsoft for many years. And on my free time, I have been president of Society of Women Engineers in Silicon Valley. I have been a former director of the Anita Borg Institute, and I participate in advisory roles in some startup companies. And I'm really looking forward to this talk, and I would like to pass this over to Martha Galley.
Thanks, Claudia. So as Claudia said, my name is Martha Galley, and my current role is as Vice President of the Customer Success Group in America for Salesforce, a small cloud company that you might be familiar with in San Francisco. But that's the capstone to a 30-year career in technology. I started when technology wasn't a very friendly place, and some would argue may still not be a terribly friendly place for women. My career spans 3 great technology companies. First, Digital Equipment Corporation. For those of you who've been around in the industry for a while, realize that they were acquired by Compaq and then subsequently by HP. After my years at Digital Equipment Corporation, I moved to Microsoft, where I had a variety of different technology, sales, and technical marketing roles, both in the East and the West and on a global basis. And about 3 years ago, I joined Salesforce and in my current position. I have been a passionate supporter of technology and women, attracting, developing, retaining strong women in technology. Those experiences have spanned both one-on-one mentoring as well as group mentoring, which we'll spend a little bit of time talking about here, and large event activities such as the women's summits that we've held in conjunction with our Dreamforce activities. So I consider part of my legacy to help develop and grow women in the technology arena, and I look forward to chatting with you about how we can all do that together. Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you, Martha. And I would like to introduce to you Mai.
Hi, I'm Mai. So I'm currently the Senior Engineering Director at Yahoo for Search. And my career this year is a 25-year career. I spent most of all of my career in development, started my career in development, and have gone through enterprise companies at Walmart.com, at Microsoft, at Symantec, and Chevron Texaco. I too am a huge supporter of mentoring, especially mentoring for women, and women who's currently in the technical field or considering the technical field. And a large part of that is just like the topic of this thing is demystifying, whether it's a group or careers in technology. It's not that scary, and you can do it. So I'm constantly going out there and reaching out to people and to women and growing and grooming and encouraging them. I couldn't be happier to be here today.
Great, thank you. And then I'm going to start with a quick overview of what is an employee resource group. Then a woman in tech is nothing but an ERG. And in the past, they used to be called affinity groups. And this is basically groups of employees that volunteer their time to connect to each other, to basically get together with people that think like them, or they have something in common. And some of them, can be women groups or Latinos in, Latinos or Black employees, and so on. Then basically these groups have been around for a long time, and many times they start as grassroots efforts. When somebody feels that, they would like to start together and discussing some things that people have in common, or sometimes they are already in place because they have been in companies that are very mature already. Then in the case of Microsoft, when I first joined, the Women at Microsoft group was already there, and we were able to leverage a lot of the framework. But in Silicon Valley, we were able to not only leverage what we had, but further expand. And I'll talk more about it. Then, with that background, I would like to go into the first question. And Mai, can you tell me about what has been your involvement in Women in Tech groups?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so for Women in Tech, I was on the board of directors for Women at Microsoft. And so especially being really new to Microsoft, such a large corporate enterprise, and most meetings I attended, I was pretty much like the only single female in the room. So it's strange, it's scary, it's a lot of new people to meet. And so so I joined the group before I actually, joined to be on the board. And what's really nice is to meet other women, to have something in common, to learn more about what other groups, what people did. And so when I actually thought, oh, this is actually a fantastic way for me to get to meet and get to know more people. And then I decided to volunteer in joining the board. And part of the board, my responsibility was basically to put together the annual women's conference. So it's a huge conference that was hugely supported by many execs across Yahoo. And so getting women together, the speakers, just to get the engagement, the community, the support. And it was a huge, huge annual event. And that was a huge main factor that I did, I think, for my last year. I think it pretty much took a whole year's worth of effort putting that together.
Wow, that's great. Martha, can you share your involvement in different women in tech groups?
Sure. So I do have to start by saying I mentioned the 3 major companies that I've worked for in my career. And the first one didn't have a women in technology group. And I have to tell you, there was a major difference when I left Digital Equipment Corporation and joined Microsoft. Microsoft already had, as May said, a very active women in technology organization. One of the interesting differences is, at that point in time, May worked, I believe, in one of the largest hubs of the company in Silicon Valley. I didn't. I worked way out in the New York field office. And although New York is a huge market and there are a lot of people there, there wasn't a very robust contingent of women interest groups. And in fact, one of the few things that we did at that point in time was take your daughter to work day. Now, take your daughter to work day has evolved to take your child to work day. And I can tell you this, I was in those days, Microsoft used to partner with one of the local middle schools, and they would send out this wonderful note telling us that they were essentially inviting these middle school girls to Microsoft in New York for the day. And I sent a little message saying, gee, if this is take your daughter to work day, and I actually have a school-age daughter, can I bring her? And what led to that was a much broader discussion about the fact that there were men and women who had young children or children of school age who would benefit from that. So I was very passionate in the very beginning about not just connecting with other women in Redmond with Microsoft at that time, but connecting into the female community right in my neighborhood. So once we got going with women at Microsoft and got beyond take your child to work day, I had relocated to the West Coast. And really, this is where I encountered probably the strongest Women at Microsoft organization. As May talked about before, there was a fabulous event that was held for women. So it was an internal event. And one of the things I want to talk about is I think that we need to both balance internally oriented employee resource groups with outreach activities. And, Claudia, you're probably one of the best people I know to talk about multi-organization, global outreach activities. So when I went to Microsoft in Silicon Valley, and I really wasn't headquartered there, I was working from my home office up in the East Bay, and I wanted to connect to women in the greater Bay Area. And so I volunteered not to be a board member for that group because I was traveling literally every week. So I needed something that I could participate in significantly that didn't involve me necessarily physically being in the Silicon Valley offices. So the group at that time was generous enough to give me a chance to participate in the women's event held annually. And I think we must have gotten the best set of executives that year. Padmasri Warrior participated, several, both a sales general manager from the West region and a woman who was running the Windows organization at that time. So it was not only a great opportunity to meet women locally, but to connect women in Silicon Valley to executives at Microsoft who didn't necessarily, come to Silicon Valley on a regular basis. And the last example I'll give is I'm a very active participant in now Salesforce's equivalent of Women at Microsoft, which is called FemForce. At Salesforce, almost everything ends with a force. And that organization is very heavily oriented towards lean-in. So there are a lot of lean-in circles. I participate in those and look for external partnerships. And Claudia, once again, you referred me to Myra for a great connection externally to the organization. But we're also launching customer and Salesforce executive outreach programs in conjunction with our world tour, which is a 25-city event that we do on an annual basis. So I'd say it's safe for me to say that both women or employee resource groups, women's organizations as a part of those, as well as external activities with building and developing women have been instrumental to me. And I've been involved in a whole variety of different activities with such groups.
When I first started at the company, I realized that there were a lot of opportunities to engage with women at Microsoft as well as with Latinos at Microsoft. And I became quickly a co-chair of Women at Microsoft and basically developed the first leadership group and established a lot of the framework of what we were going to do, including, the first conference that actually, Mai ran end to end. But on the Latinos at Microsoft experience was very interesting because I basically signed up to a mailing list. And I didn't realize that probably I was like the only person on the mailing list. And HR contacted me and they basically said, oh, do you run the Latinos at Microsoft mailing list? And I'm like, no, I don't. They said, well, it doesn't matter, but we just wanted to let you know that you had $300 budget to organize an event for Cinco de Mayo. And I said, wow, well, this is great. And I got together with other co-workers and organized the first Cinco de Mayo party with $300. We went to Costco and, we just bought some stuff. We got a piñata and, we just tequila and chips. We ended up having about 200 people coming from to our first party. Well, by the time I left, we had thousands of dollars in budget. We had probably over 1,000 people coming to the Cinco de Mayo party, probably the largest in the whole Silicon Valley. And just the feeling of a community that this group created within the Silicon Valley campus was amazing. But also being part of Latinas Women at Microsoft allowed me for the first time to get involved with the Society of Women Engineers. Because the Society of Women Engineers is a global organization that has been supporting women for a long time. And they organized a diversity event at Microsoft. And they invited me to participate as a keynote speaker. And this is the first time I was involved. And actually, since then, I have basically been so much more involved in almost every single aspect of the organization, from engaging with outreach activities that help to increase and bring awareness to the next generation of women in tech, to establishing partnerships with companies across Silicon Valley, and just mentoring and helping other women. Then these groups have the potential of basically not only having an impact, as Martha said, internally to the organization, but also a huge external impact, in the community. Then, well, this is great. Let me go to the next question. But it's like, Mike, can you tell us what impact has had in your career, your involvement in women in tech?
Yes, absolutely. And so, so I took the model that I learned from women at Microsoft, and when I went to my next company at Walmart.com, where they didn't have one, I took the model, I adapted it, and myself and a few other women started the Women Technology Circle there. So from that perspective, it helped me actually to get into a leadership role at a large company, because I was also new at Walmart.com back then as well. So the opportunity got me to meet a lot of execs at Walmart that I probably would not have gained access to on a normal basis, to fundraise, to get them to be mentoring, to get them to be speakers, and getting their involvement to help grow and groom many of the women's careers. And then now I'm at Yahoo, where there's already a women technology type of group. I'm just there volunteering mentoring. But from that perspective, you know, I realized the power of being able to influence, right? Influence folks that are already women that's already there, or even folks that are currently not there. And so what I'm currently doing a lot now is I'm doing a lot of mentoring that are outside of companies, informally through colleges, through high school. And tomorrow night, I'm actually going to UC Berkeley to be a speaker at a women's technology club to try and encourage the girls to sign up for a technology career, to consider one. And so from that perspective, I just feel like my career, myself, I've actually grown quite a bit and have a lot of opportunity to meet many other women, and to also be giving back into you know, the younger folks in the career as they kind of start their career or growing their careers. I'm able to also guide them, help them with a lot of feedback. I provide a lot of encouragement, and for them to explore many areas that they might not have known about. So for me personally, I found it to be quite enriching to be able to give back. And at the same time, opportunities for myself that I've got to know a lot more people, whether they're now in university settings or in public corporations or in schooling of various forms. So it's actually quite rewarding for myself personally.
Thank you, Mai. Martha?
I have to agree with Mai. I think the way I look at it is there are both personal and professional benefits that I think I've gained from working with women groups. First of all, Claudia, I never would have met you if I hadn't been invited to be a speaker at the Santa Clara meeting a number of years ago. And so to reinforce some of the comments that Mai made, both of us have had experience with large events which involved executives. You know, most women don't realize how important connections are, meaningful connections. So if you have an opportunity to work on an event that will have executive men or women as part of that event, I would strongly encourage you to do that. It gives you the opportunity to understand how they think, understand how to help make optimal use of their time, and it connects you to people in a meaningful way. So I definitely concur with May that that's a great way to, that's a great benefit that you get. On a personal level, mentoring is extremely important to me, and mentoring can be done at all kinds of levels. So one of the things that we had, that I initiated under the Women at Microsoft organization at a number of years ago, was taking mentoring to a different level. Specifically, one of the things that I heard regularly was we had the largest single physical presence of Microsoft outside of Redmond, or outside of the general Seattle area. And many young women felt that there were no opportunities for them. How crazy is that? And so what we did is we set up, I mean, you know, mentoring on a one-on-one basis, you shouldn't mentor too many people because nobody's getting high quality out of that. But what we realized is that there might be a new paradigm for mentoring that we could try out. And one of the key objectives that we had was to give women, high potential women, an opportunity to learn about and from each other what their work was, what their cultures were in their teams. And so we created what we called mentoring rings. And these were opportunities where there were a couple of sponsors, myself and another woman who was a colleague of mine at that point in time. And we put a proposal together for the employee success, or the HR group, along with the Women at Microsoft group. And we piloted these rings where we had small number, 8 to 10 women who were nominated by their leadership team. And to make a long story short, they were so successful that I understand that they still exist, in fact, in a non-exclusive women format, so in a mixed format to this day. I take great pride and pleasure in that because it gave me an opportunity to learn a lot about what was happening in the Silicon Valley or in the Silicon Valley campus at Microsoft, but it was also a way to have an impact on a number of young women at the same time. So I think that was very, very, very beneficial to me. And as a result of that, people have asked me to speak at a variety of different sessions, both internal to my organization at Microsoft and now at Salesforce, and also as an external speaker to talk about the importance of mentoring women in technology. So it gave me a chance to do that, and I think without the Women at Microsoft organization, I would not have had the structure and the set of resources. So that's how I think about the impact. It's provided me with great networking, great relationships with you and others, Claudia, and also an opportunity to do what I consider to be part of my personal legacy, which is to help develop young women through mentoring relationships.
Incredibly impactful. I got to meet Martha and May and many others through Women at Microsoft, and we all became mentors of each other to this day. We basically get together as a group, and at least once or twice a year, we continue to brainstorm on how to make each other stronger. While I was in the company, it actually provided me personal opportunities to have high visibility with executives, and in many cases, I got invited to speak at the press. I was on NPR, I was on CNN, and on other very large media outlets because they got to know me and they felt that I would be a strong voice for the women at Microsoft and Latinos at Microsoft, and I was privileged to participate in that. And as well, I have been able to gain huge experience that I have been able to apply in Society of Women Engineers and Anita Borg and other organizations where I continue to be involved. Then overall, has been a great pleasure to be involved at different levels. There's so much. All right, then I'm going to move to the next question, and is would you like to share some best practices of what makes women in tech groups successful? Mai?
Yes, and so from what I've seen through various companies now, I think you have to use all types of combinations to make it successful in terms of you have inspirational speakers, you have communities get together, informal and formal, you have small group discussions, you have one-on-one time, and you have sessions are focused on topics that the women, and it's very important that the women are interested in having, right? Because depending on where you are in your careers or what technical backgrounds these women have, I don't like to often offer generic types of topics. So I tend to ask them, what specifically are you trying to get? What specific things do you think you need? And then I find the right speaker, I find the right discussion group, or having others within that background or that business or that technology to be in that group that show up on that day. So I want to make sure that as we have, women technical groups and get-togethers, that has to be focused and has to be on what the topics those women are interested in. And we tend to go through a lot of round robins and voting and surfacing up, and people vote which topic they like to discuss on. So even, for instance, women, we often say, oh, we need more negotiation. So I said, well, what type of negotiation? Is it a technical negotiation, a business negotiation, what type it is? And try to give them that experience. So I find that to be successful, you have to pretty much use every format. and give variety of people speaking about that topic. So because each person relates differently, they learn to listen differently. And so sometimes even the topic of negotiation, for instance, we go through a lot of different types of scenarios. We actually role play. We had a lawyer showed up once, and he actually had prepared topics, and he practiced lecturing, and then he broke us down random groups, and he gave each of us a case. We were on opposing sides, and then he actually sat down, and then he wrote feedback for everybody. And so it's one of the most toughest, group get together we had, but it's also one of the most challenging and the most rewarding. We're like, wow, instant feedback from a professional. And if we were a key on point, we're like, wow. So I find those to be much more valuable. Yes, it takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of getting the women to actually be free to speak that I need this. Versus sometimes the women tend to be so shy, they're not very specific. So I try to also tease out what is it that you want and how we can help you as a group. As a leadership group, to make sure that your time is valuable and the right people show up to help. So I think that's some of the best practices that I've applied to the various groups that I've gone to after Microsoft.
Thank you. Martha.
I had myself on mute so that the echo would go away. So I think that it depends, we're talking to individuals on this call, and not necessarily employee success or HR organizations. So I guess the first thing I would recommend is that you need to decide what your ambition is. If your ambition is to connect with other women, then go and connect with them. And one doesn't need big programmatic or formal things, but you do need to reach out. And so that can be something as simple as inviting a group of women that you admire or that you would like to learn about to have lunch together. May and I and Claudia, in fact, have experience with organization-wide women's groups. And if you have the ambition to create or to enhance an organization-wide women's resource group, then I think one of the key things that's important is some type of executive support or sponsorship. You don't always need money, but that certainly can help. I think what is important is some degree of recognition, acknowledgement, or even better, participation of key executives. So when I think about the two, great formats, the women at Microsoft, there were several executives who were very involved, and it turns out that at least one of them was a man, and was very passionate about ensuring that women in the Silicon Valley facility had access to key executives and key resources, both locally as well as at the corporate level. I can, talk about examples where both women and men executives here at Salesforce are involved. In fact, the co-founder of the company holds a monthly get-together. It is in fact a women's networking hour, but he shows up and he strongly encourages the male members of his team to participate in that activity. So May mentioned a lot of great things that I'm just going to reinforce. You have to, if you're going to go for something that is organizationally oriented, seeing what needs people have is very important. What if they want mentoring? They want, there are a bunch of younger women who want mentoring in their careers, or they want to learn about a particular topic, or they want to share about experiences. So matching the types of activities to the need or the desire is absolutely foundationally a good thing to do. And the fact of the matter is that some people want to talk about that big question of work-life balance. So, we talk about technology, and we talk about making sure that women have got opportunity and access to technology careers. But the fact of the matter is that people have lives that need to be integrated outside. So while I would encourage people not to have the work-life balance topic as their exclusive conversation, I think that it's super important not to avoid it and to give people an opportunity to talk about some of the challenges they face, the resources that they need, and the tricks and strategies that they have used or need to use to be successful as a working parent in this particular case. So those are the things that I think I'd like to emphasize that really just add on to what May so eloquently said before.
Thank you. Then building on what you guys had said about the importance of having a executive sponsor or sponsors, on having a good understanding of the needs of the community, I also would like to add that having a strong leadership team, because all the events and all the activities cannot happen without having, the commitment of the people that are giving their own time to build, and plan for these events. Then having the strong leadership team with clear roles and responsibilities. I remember having monthly meetings where we basically had clear agendas, and we basically start planning what was going to be happening during the year, what was our budget. Then basically it was a very well-structured group that and very focused, and that we were able to make things happen. Then that was very important, and having the executive presence of Lisa Bromell, for example, was very, very, very strong during the different conferences and talks, and that helped us also lift the outreach that we were doing. I also would like to add one more thing. As being a president of SWE, a former president of SWE, I helped start and advise some of the women at some of the companies that are sponsors of SWE. And once they got started, it was like Cisco and Broadcom and Altera, I basically introduced to each other the different leaders of these three companies. And these three companies actually started to have events together. They call them ABC mixers. And then, because for Altera, Broadcom, and Cisco, and they would rotate the location of the event, and it was basically a professional development event where they would have internal and external speakers, but there would be this cross-pollination, and this is still going. There is this cross-pollination of talent among the different companies, and this is when the sum of the parts, is bigger than the whole. And it's just a great example of how companies can even go beyond their internal reach to make difference to other women, outside in the industry. Then this is great. Thank you. Then do you guys want to add a little bit more on any particular experiences that you remember that you would like to add, or regarding the women in tech before we go?
Yeah, so just to add on to your comment, Claudia, is especially, regarding the structure and the planning, it's actually really key to make sure that the value is there. And one of the things I also found is I recruit a lot of my fellow employees around me to also help, because it takes a lot of people's involvement to actually grow the community and the involvement, and it makes the relationship and the networking, the opportunities for discussion a lot more valuable. And also, having a strong leadership just means a lot of people are dedicated and focused. But because we also have day jobs and other lives, I just found out that I just reached out to a lot of people around me. Hey, can you help me with this? Do you know what expertise who can do this? And I need a person who can do these. And do you know where I can find these types of speakers or these types of expertise skills? And so by reaching out, one is I got to know a lot more people. By using this forum, I was able to meet a lot more people, or a lot more people actually open up to speaking to me. And many folks are just so willing to help. But if I didn't reach out for them, it would have been a lot of work on myself. So I think reaching out to a lot of your community, your fellow employees, is very helpful to having a successful group and forum and community of any type.
Thank you. Martha?
So I just wanted to make a plug for Claudia and the program that she got me engaged with almost against my will this past calendar year, the Tech Women program. I think, and then we should probably get to some questions, because I see some questions in the chat window. I think that when women in technology feel comfortable that their own needs and their own company and their own career is on the right path, it gives you a chance to reach out to the global community. And if it weren't for Claudia, I wouldn't have had the chance to do that this year. So another avenue for women in technology, mostly in the Silicon Valley. I know that this is a virtual conference, so if you're not in the Silicon Valley area, my apologies to you about promoting this, but a program sponsored by the Department of State, the U.S. Department of State, a nonprofit program or run by a nonprofit organization that brought 98 women from 20 countries to Silicon Valley for an intensive 6-week period. And if you want to experience mentorship on steroids, don't contact me. Contact Claudia, because she's the one who really knows what's going on. But I want to encourage all the women who are listening to, whether live or listening to this broadcast or this recording later on, to give back. It's great to create and build a connection with the women in your organization and to connect with women outside your organization, but you're really multiplying the power of women in technology when you mentor. And when you mentor on a global basis, it's not only an educational experience, but it's a life-altering experience. So I just needed to put that plug in, Claudia.
Program I got involved about it's going to be 5 years ago, and it has been life-changing. As Martha said, it's mentoring on steroids and having the opportunity to have a global impact. That is just an incredible experience. And I really appreciate that you got involved, Martha, and I'm sure that Mai will be involved next time. That's my next victim. But this is definitely something that we're all very passionate about. And if you're thinking about starting a Women in Tech in your company, first you have to just find some kindred spirits, that share the same vision as you have. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people. You can just have launches like what Martha said, just to start small, start to understand what people are looking for, like what Mai said, and basically maybe have a brown bag where people bring, book up a conference room, have a brown bag with a speaker or one of you giving a speech, and then you can start small. And as soon as you start to get traction, you can start to invite maybe somebody at a higher level to be a speaker at your regular meetings, and basically maybe secure some budget. One very good way of helping to get traction on this is to basically align with the company goals. Many times we don't, we think that, or it's not that 100% clear what is going to be the value of the Women in Tech group. It's not only about us, but it's also good for the companies because it does help with retention. It helps with diversity. It helps with exposure. It helps with a lot of hiring, because, so many of these women in tech groups host their events where basically people from the outside get invited, and there is hiring opportunities for HR. Then overall, it's a win-win situation for the women in the Women in Tech group as well as the company. Then with that, we're going to be moving into the Q&A for the chat room. Is somebody, Martha, do you have? Can you see the chat? Do you mind reading the question?
Sure.
Thank you.
There are several questions here, so we might want to take them one at a time, and they're very good.
All right.
So the question is, have you run into situations where you felt your work or ideas were undermined by male coworkers and you suspected that it was because of conscious or unconscious bias against women? And basically, how do you figure out whether gender plays a role in the situation and the extent to which it does? So that's the first part of the question. Maybe we could tackle that first.
It's a very profound question. Yes, it's very profound. I many times I have been the only woman at the table, and in general, I have not tried to think that people have unconscious bias against me, even though, I'm Latina, I'm a foreigner, I'm over 40, I'm a mom, I have all reasons to believe there may be an unconscious bias. But when you actually put your ideas together in a way that shows that you have done your homework, and you have done really a lot of thought. You have put a lot of thought into your statements and your questions. I believe that people recognize that at the table. When you feel that you are not confident, people recognize the lack of confidence at the table as well, and your voice may not be heard as strongly as you wish. However, unconscious bias exists many times, and we all tend to gravitate towards people that look like us or think like us. And we just have to ensure that we establish those relationships of people that are going to be your allies during the meetings, and that you have the opportunity to build your credibility inside and outside the meeting, such that the opportunities for undermining your opinions go away, or they are minimized. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, so from my experience is I always give people the benefit of the doubt that it's not a women or a gender issue, right? Because we're all professionals, and usually these are work settings professionals. And so I always make sure that I follow with things like, have I answered your questions? Was it helpful? Did I give you the details that you provided? What else were you expecting? Right, to make sure that, yes, was I helpful? Is it what you needed? So that they don't feel like, I don't know, or I'm not being reasonable, or I'm not understanding. And I want to make sure that we end the conversation well as well. And so I don't let the situation to arise that it becomes a gender or a bias issue of any kind, because like Claudia, right, I'm Asian, I'm female, I'm mom, I'm older, and English is not my first language. But I also realize too, is many of the meetings too, I'm usually the only female, as Claudia said, but I always make sure that I come very well prepared. Right? I know what the agenda is. I look up to see who shows up at the meeting, so I know who the profile is, what they do. If there's pictures within the directory internal, I can see what they look like. I prepare all the technical details that was required, right? So if it's executive level, I prepare different types of detail versus a low-level architectural design meeting. And the most important thing is, when you come prepared, you feel confident, you act confident, and you have the facts and information to be confident. And so people will listen to you. They will hear your voice, and you don't sound nervous and shaking and sweating like crazy. And so they just have more belief in you. And it is tough when you're young looking, when you're new, or when you're not as familiar with the systems or the components. But if you did your homework and you know who's showing up in the room, and you prepare to the best you can of that details, you talk about the facts, you talk about the subject, you talk about what's at hand, and everything that you feel you just suppress. You're like, oh, don't take it personally. It must not be about me. Oh, it's not because I'm the woman. Oh, it's not because I'm young. Oh, it's not because this. I'm here based on this role. I'm here to present this topic. I'm the authority on this expert, and here I am. And you don't let it bother you, and you don't let it to become a topic.
Great. So I'm going to talk about the edge cases, because they have done such a fabulous job of talking about the great middle. And one of the things I want to tell you about is a young woman that I mentored at Microsoft who asked me how could she develop more credibility or relationships in her technical male-dominated group. Every human being on the planet has some degree of bias. It's based on a lack of knowledge, a lack of familiarity. People tend to be uncomfortable by things they don't understand. So seek first to be understood. And quite frankly, it can be intimidating in a male-dominated organization. I remember the first time I got an achievement award. It was the Most Valuable Player Achievement Award, and I got handed a football. To which I responded to my boss, who announced this in front of everybody, oh, my daughter will love it, because my first child happened to be a girl. Now, it was tongue-in-cheek, but it made people understand and realize that, there are two sides to this. So what I advised this young woman, I said, how do you connect with men in your organization today? And she said, well, they all just talk about sports. So I gave her the 15-minute rule. I asked her, do you commute to work in a car? And she said, yes, I do. I said, that's all you need. Turn on the news or sports radio for 15 minutes, and you will get enough information to join a conversation or start a conversation so that people will feel comfortable communicating with you in situations other than just formal presentations. Now, you think about the people that you trust and like to work with the most. You probably got to know them a little bit better as well. So use your connection tools as a woman. Women are generally great connectors, to build some relationships. And then the other end of the spectrum, if you are working in a toxic environment, vote with your feet. Because frankly, in this day and age, there are very few companies that can in fact afford to discriminate against great employees. So if you are a star employee and you decide that you're working in a toxic environment, that you can't either connect on a personal level or connect at a leadership level, which Mai was talking about, making sure that you are prepared and making sure that you're doing everything that needs to be done, then in fact find a non-toxic environment. And oh, by the way, should you have an exit interview, help them understand how that was a deciding factor and that you will go take your great technical skills to someplace that not only is a great technology environment to work in, but is a great equality environment to work in.
Very good, thank you. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, the next part of this question was, how have women's groups helped you navigate this problem? So this is all part of this person's same question. So maybe we could address how women can help support each other in the context of dealing with that gender bias situation.
Well, I believe that it's incredibly important to establish these relationships with other women, and that we basically use each other as sounding boards. Then when we want to move, an idea forward in a meeting, it is also useful to get together, not only with women, but with other allies to basically discuss the topic beforehand. So it's that you basically work out the issues that may come up during the meetings. Then having that, as you go into a meeting and you start discussing the topic is not new to everybody, and you're going to have some people that are going to be able to talk and reinforce, your ideas. And after the meeting, the same group of people, you can provide them for feedback and say, how did I do during the meeting? Or what do you think I could have done better? And having that type of relationship with a group of people that are going to help each other, during the times of need, I think is just very important. And relying on the women of the resource group is actually a great opportunity to do that.
Yes, from my experience, I've exited a couple of really rough meetings that I didn't get what I wanted, or the feedback was just I felt like, my God, they all threw darts across the room with some things I wouldn't answer so well. So one of the things that I do a lot, as Claudia mentioned, is I got feedback afterwards. I looked at the meeting invite again, who was in the room, people that I knew or had a relationship with. I would reach out to them. I said, hey, I just need a quick chat from you to talk about that meeting the other day. And then I asked them for their thoughts and assessment, because sometimes I'm not able to see and to judge while I'm in the middle of those meetings, like what happened? Or maybe I did something, whether it's a visual, verbal, body language thing that threw something off and I didn't realize. So I asked for feedback as to what they saw in my presentation or the way we did it. And it could be myself or my team, right? Because some of these my team is sitting and presenting proposals. And so they were like, oh, you should have done this and that. And gosh, when you started that, we thought you were going to do this, you did that. So getting those perspective from those people in the room is really, really helpful for me to refine, for my team and I to refine our next type of big proposals or project or technicals and architectural design. Is actually very important. And even sometimes, the people I didn't know, it became an opportunity for me to reach out. I was like, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm the person sitting on that other side. That was my team in that meeting. And I know you and I have not met, but do you have 15 minutes for me? I just want to ask you, how do I get this thing to pass? How do I get for you to vote? Trying to get them. And so it's an opportunity to have a one-on-one with an executive or that technical architect that I never would have gotten otherwise. But for me, reaching out in a kind of like a safer, and after the fact, we all got a chance to breathe away from the room a day or two ago, then we both can reflect, because I'm calmer, less defensive. They were attacking me, they're also calmer. And then we can actually have a conversation on the side. And usually I try to have a coffee or a lunch chat, so it's much more comfortable that it's not in a meeting room and closed. And we can just chit chat, on the sidewalk somewhere, and then they give me feedback. And then I also ask, what's your advice? What would I do or change to get it differently so that you would agree? And then we begin negotiating on the fly a lot of the times. So it's actually very helpful that you have to be able to take a deep breath and separate yourself afterwards of whatever that situation is, and to also give yourself really take a look at the situation, like, because recognizing what happened from your perspective is important. So when you go out, you can also then ask other people their reflection and their thoughts, and do a comparison between what you saw and what they saw. It could be very different. So you have to learn from these things to adjust and adapt for yourself. And then I also then go back to my team, gave the feedback. I talked to these folks, this is what they thought of my presentation, this is the weakness, this is thought they thought points were strong, and here's the recommendation. And so I would follow that to try to get that next invite or the next meeting, and then retool and repitch ourselves.
But one last comment on this topic. I think that's specific to the question. Women's support groups within an organization can be incredibly safe places. So both Claudia and I gave examples of how to use those organizations to get feedback and to test things. But a comment I want to make is that if you all think that the only people out there who will give you a hard time are men in your organization, you're wrong. There are fundamentally builders and climbers. And I guarantee you, regardless of whether it's a man or a woman, someone who operates in the organization by climbing over other people will use tactics that undermine the contributions or the performance of other people. People who are builders, regardless of what hierarchical level they're at, look to make the entire team better. They are the collaborators. They are the ones who give credit, not by deflecting credit and contribution from themselves, but by including discussion and contribution, recognition of other people who have participated. So I guess my feeling about it is that in my long career, mostly I've seen that the climbers eventually get their due, but the builders always have an opportunity to grow. So it's not just about women who are going to necessarily give you a challenge. Lots of people will give you a challenge, and use the women's affinity groups as safe places to test ideas and feedback and experiences.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, you're in mute.
You want me to read it?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so it says, I am a woman in a 99% male IT environment. Do you have any words of advice for a woman in regards to standing out amongst male peers in order to be seen as a serious professional and equal team player? Can I start this one?
Yes.
Please.
So I give this advice when I mentor people, regardless of whether they're men or women. And that the image that I use, you have a pool of water in front of you, and you have a stone, and you drop that stone into the pool of water. And I pretty much bet that I don't need to tell any of you what that looks like. So let me explain why this is a valuable image. The inner circle is you, your integrated life, and your immediate job. So first and foremost, standing out, you got to do a darn good job at what it is you're paid to do. Now, if your experiences or your deliverables or your achievements in relative to your job are not being recognized, then I would ask, how are you communicating them? Are you, in fact, being proactive and organized about how you are communicating how what you have achieved meets the objectives of the organization? So first and foremost, you need to do a great job, and you need to communicate it for the responsibilities that you have. But now let's talk about the outer rings. And they are concentric. More and more and more rings, and they get bigger and bigger. Those are your circles of impact and influence in the organization. Once you've done a great job doing your job, you want to get noticed, go help somebody else achieve their goals. Whether it's your boss's goals that don't involve your direct team, or whether it's a tangential part of the organization, obviously once you've been given permission to, spend some time working. But really the people who get promoted and stand out in an organization are those who do a fantastic job of what it is they're hired to do, and then successively look for opportunities to impact and influence in a meaningful way the needs and objectives of a broader and broader and broader stage in their organization. That's the way to get genuinely recognized. Show up and have an impact.
Martha. This is why Martha is my mentor. I want to add one thing, and is that, many times we get into this mental trap that because I'm a woman, because I'm different, because I'm the only woman in the room, nobody's going to listen to me. I actually have found that I actually use my being different as an advantage in meetings. And basically because I am different and I'm not delivering my message the same way as everybody else is, when I speak, actually people listen. Then I have to be prepared with a very strong argument and having done my homework, and that it's actually at the right time, in the right context, regarding the circle of influence is basically what it's important now. It's not what is important in 10 years or later. And basically people listen to you because you are different. And I believe that if you use those differences as a springboard, actually you can make a difference. You can make a difference. And that has been one of my strengths when I communicate my ideas in an all-male environment. I don't use my differences as a weakness, but I use them as a strength.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, what I also found out that it works for me is I don't see myself as differently, because when I do, I get all consciously what's wrong with me, and then raising my hair, my jewelry, my makeup. And so then I just said, okay, I'm a part of this team. I have an equal seat at the table, and this is the job I do, and I'll do it really, really well. That's going to be me. And I hate to say that I'm going to tap my shoulder and say I'm the world's greatest person ever. No, you communicate clearly, objectively with data and facts. This is your contribution. You are hired to this, and this is the result of your work. And here's the objective you met for your org or your goals or the revenue, the volume, the metric, whatever that it is. You keep it to the facts. My effort, how hard it was I did it, the situation I was in. I found this problem. I was able to solve it like this. I got talked to so-and-so. I figured out several options. I recommend option 2. And this is the result that I tried. And this is the result that we have. Right? And so you keep it in that way so that, you're part of the team. You keep it objective. You keep it factual. And you just don't let it get you that you're the only female, because you do begin, to get nervous and things like that. So I try to say, you know what? I'm a part of this team. I'm the one of 8 members. They do that, I do this. And I'm really good at this, and here's the result, and here's what I like to tell you. So keep it objective and just focus on the facts and the achievement, the impact you made.
Thank you. Martha, any other questions? Do we have for any other questions?
Sorry, thank you for unmuting me. I don't see any other questions in the chat window. Do people want to open up the line? Are there any other questions that they'd like to ask live? We do have 2 minutes left, ladies.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone. So if you don't want to be heard, just go back and mute yourself back up. But we might get some noise here. So here we go. Okay, everyone's unmuted. Do you have any questions for us? Well, what an amazing session. It's gone above and beyond women's groups. I think we've gone into the coaching and mentoring, which I think we could probably do for another 2-3 hours at least. So thank you so much for wonderful advice and great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Deanna. Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, I hope you'll catch our next session, which we're going to start working in India tonight. So at 9:30 Pacific, we're going to start focusing on women in technology in India through the wee hours of the morning. So I hope you'll join some of those then.
Okay, bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.